I think the history of emotions is kind of what it says on the tin. It's a history of how people felt, what their sensations were, how they felt about things. It's, I think, important as part of history, not as a separate thing. I think the ultimate goal of history of emotions is to be forgotten and to become part of the background noise, if you like, of any historical analysis. But at the moment, it's working out what emotions are and were as they changed, as cultural ideas hasn't changed in the past. And so you could look at the idea of the emotion, the cultural aspect of the emotion, the social aspect of the emotion, how people individually dealt with emotions. That's basically, to me, what the history of emotions is. I'm currently researching the prehistory of disgust, the passions of aversion. That is, before the word disgust was used to describe an emotion that many people assume is about taste and going there. It was a much wider topic. It was horror, and it was aversion, and it was abomination, which is a complicated word, and eschewment. It was about pushing away and avoiding things, and it could involve a fire as much as it could involve a smell or a rotting corpse. And so I'm trying to get to grips with how people thought this emotion was, because there's been a lot of assumption that it's just disgust as we know it. And when I try to look for disgust as we know it, there was no disgust as we knew it before about the mid 18th century. So I'm trying to find out what there was. I think probably for all its faults, it is The Anatomy of Disgust by William Ian Miller. It's not really a history per se, but it does look at the history of disgust as a role in social cohesion. And he taps into one area of these passions of aversion. He makes a few mistakes, but his general thrust of his general idea that these emotions of repulsion can actually work for positive good as well as a negative is quite interesting, and one that's been discussed for the, what is it now, 17 years ever since it was published within the field of disgust generally. I think the field will become part of historical practice. I think there will be a history of emotions that looks at them individually, but I think when people look at anything in history, they will hopefully draw upon this field and say, okay, so how do the people feel? And it will become more a history of what I think Cave called experiences, where you look at how people felt, how they acted, what they believed, what they thought, rather than at the moment, which is kind of all too often still who did what to who in history. I think it will become more advanced, almost like the Annales school wanted it to be.